Joining me now is a senator, someone who understands the dire straits that we are in today, so much so that he put aside any electability concerns and endorsed Donald Trump this week, citing the border as one of the key reasons. Senator Tom Cotton, welcome.
Thank you, Brian. Good to be on with you. Happy New Year to you and all of your viewers.
So we've been talking about the border forever, and I know your point of view, and it was so strong that you said, no doubt about it, Trump did a good job on the border. I want him back. But before we do that, what have you heard about the Senate negotiations led by Sinema, Lankford, and Murphy of Connecticut?
Brian, the real question is whether the Democrats are willing to meet us at a position where we can actually stop the flow of migrants to the border. We started maybe 3 months ago. The Democrats said nothing. All they wanted was more money to process migrants faster. We're not interested in processing migrants faster. Frankly, we're not interested in detaining migrants. We shouldn't have to use American taxpayer dollars to put them in detention facilities. They shouldn't come in the first place. And the word needs to get out that they shouldn't come. And the way to do that is not just asylum reform, which you mentioned in your opening, which the Democrats have said they're willing to entertain, but it's also parole reform. That's what President Biden has abused so badly over the last 3 years.
That?
To the point now we have 300,000 migrants joining us, or coming into this country just last month. So if you have asylum without parole, it's like damming the left-hand side of the river. You have to have both of them together. So far, the Democrats have said they're not willing to entertain genuine parole reform, but hopefully they're willing to actually make the compromises necessary to stop the flow of migrants at our border.
So I understand right now, if I come up to the border, I say my life is in dire straits, I'm under threat, I need to stay. And they say, okay, come back in 7 years, here's your court appearance. Now they're going to say, no, go to a different part of your country or apply for it in the next country. That would help. But what about parole specifically do you want to see changed?
Well, Brian, parole is designed by law to be very specific case-by-case grant of entry into the country. Say you're a foreign national who has a loved one in America who's passed away and you want to go to the funeral, or maybe is on his or her deathbed. On a case-by-case specific determination, the administration can allow you to come in. What the president has done is use parole on a widespread basis to grant it to broad categories of groups of migrants from countries who have no specific individualized hardship. We want to ensure that that can happen. Now, we're flexible on the way that might be done, whether it's further reforms to parole standards or maybe just putting a cap on the total number of parole awards each single year. But we have to have genuine parole reform with asylum reform, or again, it's like damming the left-hand side of the river.
If it gets through the Senate, knowing the House the way you know it, how do you think they will receive it, knowing that H.R. 2, they won't check all the boxes from H.R. 2, like finishing the wall and other things? Do you think there's a chance they'll say we'll get 2/3 of what we want and we'll go back for it if we win the Senate and the House and the White House?
Well, Brian, what I think is important is that whatever we pass in the Senate and the House and send to the president for his signature, if we can get that kind of language passed, is that it stops the flow of migrants. It's less important to me what it's called or what form it takes or whether it's paired with other measures in a broader bill, but whether it actually has the real and practical effect of protecting our border and stopping this slow motion invasion that we've had, not just from Mexican nationals or say Guatemalans or Latin Americans, but from Africa and Asia, all around the world. Just last week, the New York Times ran a story about African migrants coming, and one of them said to the reporter that we're coming to America instead of Europe because we know we can get into America. Think about that. They're flying all the way to Latin America and then making the journey overland to our southern border because they know they can get into the United States as opposed to going to Europe, which is so much closer to them.
So I think that Ron DeSantis would have cracked down on the border. Nikki Haley says she was going to crack down on the border. Why did you think that President Trump is the one to do it that would get Tom Cotton's endorsement?
Well, I think President Trump is in a unique position for any presidential candidate. He's not saying what he would do or what he hopes to do or making promises. He has a record. He did all these things. He closed the border. He got our economy booming. He got working class wages up. Things were good under President Trump. They've gone to hell under Joe Biden. Again, we have a slow motion invasion. If you parcel out the numbers from last December over a year of 3.5 million migrants in 1 year. That's more than the population of Arkansas. Working class wages are falling, and war is breaking out everywhere as the bad guys in places like Iran and Yemen and Russia and Hamas and China know that they can take advantage of this president. So it's a very simple contrast. It's not promises or aspirations from President Trump, but it's simply saying, look at what happened when President Trump was in office. Look what's happened since President Biden has taken office. It's a clear choice, and I think the American people want to go back to the good times, the peace and prosperity of the Trump era.
I know that you certified the election. There was no hesitation with you back when all the controversy happened in 2020, the transition of power. So you just put that, you minimized that as opposed to where we're at as a country right now.
Well, look, no one is ever going to agree with any other elected official 100% of the time. You know, I disagreed with the president on, say, criminal justice reform. But it's very clear that under President Trump, we had a booming economy.
Yep.
The working class was growing. It was getting higher wages. We didn't have inflation. We had a secure border. And we were respected by our adversaries and our allies alike. Under Joe Biden, none of that is the case.
Would you serve in his cabinet if you asked him if he happens to win in November?
I don't want to speculate about the future, about what's going to happen after President Trump wins. I want to work over the next 10 months to make sure he does, in fact, win, and that we also have a Republican majority in the Senate and the House so we can make a positive difference for the people of Arkansas and this entire country.
Go back to playing with your kids this weekend. Thanks so much for giving us some time on this Saturday night. Senator Tom Cotton, thanks so much.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.